Comic Boom.
Hey guys, Comic Boom here to review Justice League issue 28. This is the offer issue. And it's actually very appropriate that it is the offer, because most of the time, for most of the DC issues that have the offer on the top of the page, on the top of the cover, it's only an offer that's made on the very last page of the issue. So essentially it's a ripoff in the vast majority of the DC comics. This one, the entire issue is really dedicated to an offer made by the apex predator, essentially Lex Luthor, but by sort of Perpetua-induced, the resurrected Lex Luthor. He makes an offer to Martian Manhunter. And the offer he makes throughout the issue, that is illustrated by Fernandez, and written by James Tynion IV again, who I must add, I think James Tynion IV continues to improve on his exposition. I think he reels it in fairly well. There's it's an exposition heavy issue, but I really enjoyed it. And I particularly enjoyed the scenes between Shane, the sort of like six-dimensional offspring of Hawkgirl and Martian Manhunter. Shane has a conversation with Starman, and the young Shane and the powers that he has and the powers that Starman has to sort of peer into the void, peer into the future, and what he sees in the future isn't particularly good. The future does spell doom, and when you couple that with Lex Luthor making this offer to Martian Manhunter, it really made for, I thought, a very compelling issue, and I thought it was a good issue. Is it absolutely necessary in the general scheme of things? I would say no, but it's nice to have a little bit of a break but a little bit more of some character moments. What I found particularly interesting here is in Lex's communication with Martian Manhunter. The issue starts off with Martian Manhunter and Hawkgirl essentially looking for Luthor, and because they can't find him, right? The Justice League, of course, is still having a very hard time finding the Legion of Doom headquarters, and that's because the Legion of Doom headquarters it exists in and out of reality, so it's going to be very hard to find, and that was established early on in the early issues of Justice League. But in any event, as Martian Manhunter and Hawkgirl, Kendra, as they're looking for Lex Luthor manages to communicate telepathically with Martian Manhunter and say, look, put Kendra to sleep, and I'll talk with you, but I'm not going to talk with Kendra. Use your powers, put Kendra to sleep, and I'll talk with you, because we need to talk. And so Martian Manhunter, while, we all know you don't want to piss off Kendra. Pissing off Hawkgirl is not generally a good idea, but naturally Martian Manhunter did it again. I mean, let's face it, all good relationships are premised on a degree of annoyance, right? If you're not annoying your significant other, the relationship can't work, can it? I mean, the only way to truly function is to function in dysfunction, right? So, naturally, Martian Manhunter does exactly what Luthor asks and puts Kendra to sleep. Now, Kendra's going to come out of that sleep and be awfully pissed off, as we saw later in the issue. But before we get there, Luthor basically makes an offer to Martian Manhunter. He basically brings Martian Manhunter into the same place where Martian Manhunter was captured by Lionel Luthor when he was a young boy. To recall, just to back up a little bit, and a little bit of backstory here, remember that in a previous issue it was established that when Martian Manhunter was a young boy, and before his memories were erased, he was essentially captured as a young boy by Lionel Luthor, and he was experimented on because Lionel Luthor was trying to find out some genetic secrets in order to create the apex predator, to create to create a specimen, a life form that made up the great army of Perpetua. And we know that the great army each individual of the great army consisted of a combination of Martian and human DNA. Well, you had Luthor as the human, and we had Martian Manhunter as, of course, the Martian. And as they were when they were younger, a young Lex Luthor rescued and saved Martian Manhunter and sabotaged his own father's works in order to get Martian Manhunter to safety. Well, here we are, many years later, of course, as they're both adults. Luthor now is, of course, completely influenced by Perpetua, or so we think, and he's been resurrected. He allowed himself to die to be resurrected by Perpetua to basically be this powerful new apex predator Lex Luthor. But Lex Luthor wants to even go to the next level, because Lex Luthor says to Martian Manhunter, look, remember what we were going to do, what my father planned when we were younger, okay? We are in my father's old lab. That's where Lex Luthor takes Martian Manhunter. It's in his father's old lab. It's a very impressive place. Even Lex Luthor reluctantly admitted that he was impressed with the technology of the headquarters, that is the old headquarters that Lionel Luthor had. And he says, look, let's merge ourselves. Merge with me, John. John Jones, merge with me. But we can merge our minds together. We can merge our bodies together. We can become one. We can become the ultimate apex predator. Do this. We can embrace doom. We can reshape the universe however we like. If you know this to be true, John, merge with me. We can control the destiny of the multiverse. At a minimum, we can control the destiny of the universe, and very likely the destiny of the entire multiverse, because Perpetua has that power. And we can overcome the judges of creation if they ultimately seek to find Perpetua. We can find a way to defeat the judges of creation and control the multiverse, and perhaps even more beyond that. At least that's what's inferred. Well, Martian Manhunter, of course, says absolutely not. And of course, Lex Luthor was expecting that, or at least he was hoping that he could talk Martian Manhunter into it, but he couldn't. And so what he does is that he literally kills Martian Manhunter. He tries to destroy him, to basically destroy his mind, to basically rip apart Martian Manhunter in a great sequence that was, again, I think very well illustrated by Fernandez. It's almost like a horror-like feel to the art, which is appropriate for what happens here, because it's really the destruction of Martian Manhunter. Now, as Martian Manhunter lay there dying from Luthor's attacks after he refuses Luthor's offer, he wakes up Kendra, because he put Kendra to sleep, so he wakes up Hawkgirl. Hawkgirl attempts to attack Lex Luthor, but she's handily caged by the Apex Lex. Apex Lex, how's that for a word? Apex Lex? Kind of rolls off the tongue, doesn't it? In any event, Apex Lex basically easily cages Hawkgirl, and she basically watches Martian Manhunter die. Now, we're fairly certain it looks as if Martian Manhunter is dead, but of course this is comics. I'm sure he's going to come back in some form or another. But Martian Manhunter dies, and Hawkgirl basically, she vows, she says, Lex, I am going to kill you. When I get out of here, I'm going to kill you. Now, while Lex Luthor, of course, sort of broke his word to Martian Manhunter, essentially by killing him, of course, he at least kept his word that he'd never harmed Hawkgirl. At the end of the issue, she's still caged, but I imagine she's going to get away in some form or another. Lex Luthor basically says, bring it on, because Lex Luthor's ready for a fight. He's ready to take out the League. And Lex Luthor makes a point of telling Hawkgirl, look, I got my other Legion of Doom members, they're on Quord, and Quord is in the antimatter universe, and they're going to attack the Justice League. Because you remember that there are other members of the Justice League, after they went to the Hall of Heroes and met with all the heroes of the multiverse to say, look, we need to find the Monitor, the Anti-Monitor, and we already got the World Forger, but we need to find the Monitor and Anti-Monitor, because they represent matter and antimatter. We need to find them before we attack and try to defeat the forces of doom. Well, they found the Monitor last issue, and they found out that the Anti-Monitor is in the antimatter universe. Surprise, surprise, on Quord. Now, Quord is a place that is in most of comic book DC lore. That's where Sinestro basically went, and where Sinestro forged his yellow ring. So they're on Quord, the Justice League is there, Batman, Flash, Green Lantern, Wonder Woman, and they're looking for the Anti-Monitor. And it's quite obvious that all the weaponeers that basically make up the army of Quord, they've all been destroyed. They've either abandoned the place or they've been killed. And since they're arguably one of the most powerful armies in all the multiverse, and if whatever force could kill them, you know it's a deadly force. So where is the Anti-Monitor? Well, they can't find the Anti-Monitor, but what they do run into is the Legion of Doom, headed by Sinestro, and Green Lantern, John Stewart, Green Lantern, warns, says, guys, Sinestro's trying to control my ultraviolet power, and if he activates it, we're all going to be dead. And I think, so we got to get out of here. So the World Forger slams down his hammer, and the Justice League manages to escape before they can be defeated by the Legion of Doom in the antimatter universe. So that's significant. So where we're left with now is we still don't know where the Anti-Monitor is. We still don't know what the Anti-Monitor is up to. Martian Manhunter appears to be dead. Kendra seems to be captured by Lex Luthor, and Lex Luthor is go time. He's ready to kick some butt. So things are really heating up here. I'm enjoying this. I thought this was a well laid out issue. Again, I'm just continuously impressed by this Justice League. This is the way to do a longer narrative. Very, very impressive. And I might add, Tom King, this is only 28 issues in, not 75. But in any event, it is what it is. Guys, tell me what you think of Justice League issue 28. Follow me on Twitter at Metropolis40. Give me some comments below. Hit the subscribe button. Follow me on Twitter. And until next time, Comic Boom out.